Welcome to the Ohio Ram Show.
Hi, I'm Laura Grehan. I'm from Dublin, Ireland. I'm in Recovery Road right now after an Ireland cross-country, west coast to east coast of Ireland, World Ultracycling Association record attempt, which I completed last Saturday, the 5th of September. And since the attempt, it's awaiting verification by WUCA at the moment, I've had so many non-cycling people ask me the question, why would you cycle across the country non-stop? Well, for me, I was attracted to this attempt, firstly, because it gave me the opportunity to become Ireland's first female solo WUCA record holder, which I thought was pretty exciting. I'd also become the first person, male or female, to establish a solo cross-country record for the west coast to the east coast of Ireland. And finally, and really importantly for me, the attempt gave me the chance to raise awareness and funding for the Irish Lung Fibrosis Association. And ILFA is an organisation that's very close to my heart, primarily because my aunt died of the condition about 14 years ago, and my cousin and uncle are heavily involved with the organisation. And so far, actually, we've raised more than €6,000 for the charity. So in terms of the attempt itself, the distance that we faced with it was a little over 380 kilometres, and that included around about 3,500 metres of elevation. We had really good conditions weather-wise on the day. It was mild, mostly dry, which was quite unusual for Ireland. And happily, we had a prevailing wind, so pretty much perfect weather conditions. So we set off from Ireland's most westerly point, which is Slayhead in County Kerry at 4:45 a.m, so in complete darkness. But it meant that we had the pleasure then of cycling along what's a very scenic west coast of Ireland as the sun came up. In terms of equipment, I used a Canyon Ultimate bike with Zip 30 course wheel set for the attempt. And in terms of mechanics, it very much the look of the Irish with me, because apart from a chain off with less than a kilometre to go, which was mad really, I had no mechanical issues at all over the course of the day. And we actually discovered when packing up the bike afterwards that I had a slow puncture that I must have picked up right at the end, because I actually didn't notice it at all. I knew before the attempt that fueling was going to be a big challenge for me. I love eating food off the bike, but for some reason put me on a bike and I find it very difficult to get it into me. So we were really very careful to monitor my food and drink intake over the course of the day. I had a combination of real food, which actually was mostly sandwiches. I had some energy bars, and I have to admit quite a bit of chocolate towards the end of the day. And for hydration, I took a mix of electrolyte and carb bottle mix. There were some unusual things that we encountered during the day. Probably the most unusual was getting stuck behind a herd of cattle, moving really slowly along the road a couple of hours into the attempt. It was very frustrating at the time. We actually only lost about a couple of minutes waiting to get by, but at the time it seemed like an absolute eternity waiting for them to turn off the road into their field. The whole attempt really was, for me, was just an incredible experience, and seeing the months of training and preparation with my crew paying off was so exciting. We'd only actually one member of the crew who had any real previous ultracycling experience. So it meant that we had a lot of research to do beforehand, but we got lots of really useful advice from so many members of the Irish ultracycling community. And actually, at many times during the day, I kind of stopped and thought about the hours and hours that I'd spent on the turbo trainer during lockdown earlier in the year in Dublin, wondering if I was completely mad and if a record attempt would even be possible at any stage during the year. Happily, though, our journey took us across counties Kerry, Cork, Tipperary, Kilkenny, Carlow, and finally into Wicklow. And the day seemed to pass very quickly. Highlights for me were probably children cheering from the side of the road, with cars beeping and waving in support as they passed us by. We had some stunning scenery along the way, and I was really conscious of just savouring it and focus on enjoyment. So at 6:12 p.m. then, after 13 hours, 27 minutes on the road, my crew and I arrived at our final destination, Ireland's most easterly point at Wicklow Head Lighthouse. We had a small group of friends and family there to greet us, somewhat unexpectedly. And we were actually so far ahead of schedule, it was quite a rush for many of them to get down from Dublin to the finish on time. And by the end, we had a really special bond within the crew in a sense that we'd achieved something quite special together. I owe an awful lot to my crew members, Aidan O'Neill, Don Samway, Ian McNally and Martina Diagnan, and also to the WUCA official with us, Marie Moran. They're absolutely dying for me to go again with another record attempt. We'd just enjoyed the day so much. With it, I guess my hope is that this Ireland West Coast to East Coast record attempt will encourage more Irish cyclists, and particularly females, to think about giving maybe something like a WUCA record attempt a go. I really believe that if I, as very much an ultracycling novice, can do it, that pretty much anybody can. What's next for me? I have coming up in less than 3 weeks' time. I'm going to have to recover quite quickly because I have the Team Joe Bar race in Derry in Northern Ireland coming up. It's a 200 mile or 320 kilometre solar race. So very much shifting the focus now to the next event and hoping that it can be for us as a team as successful as this one has been. I'm Laura Grehan, reporting for the Ohio Ramp Show.
This is Gregory Zuber, thanking you for watching and sharing.
Music by Kevin MacLeod.